The Time Check was brought to you by Seiko.
Welcome back. The government is reviewing the regulatory system for the local electricity market. The Consumer Council is calling for an overhaul of the scheme of control agreements with the two local power companies. Ronnie Samtani has more.
Almost every year, electricity tariffs go up, partly because of the rise in fuel costs. Speaking to TVB News today, Thomas Chang, chairman of the Consumer Council's Competition Policy Committee, said the existing system favors the two local power companies at the expense of consumers.
There are two components to the tariff, the basic tariff and the fuel surcharge. The fuel surcharge basically allows the electricity companies to pass on the entire fuel cost increase to consumers. Under this current mechanism, the two electricity companies actually bear no risks in fluctuation in fuel costs, and that we think is unfair.
Chang believes electricity may be a little cheaper if there are more players in the sector. A recent Consumer Council study conducted by an international expert group suggests liberalizing the power generation market. This includes looking into the feasibility of allowing small-scale electricity generation facilities to be set up at large buildings such as malls and hospitals.
It introduces competition to the extent that consumers are able to meet their own demand themselves. So what we have in mind are airports, maybe MTR, hospitals, universities, these large-scale users, and they have space. And these generators are actually not very big. And for that, we would need the two electricity companies and town gas to be willing to share their current pipes. They currently have pipes to import natural gas from the mainland.
CLP Power and Hong Kong Electric have dominated the market for years. The Consumer Council called on the government to open up the market and change the regulatory system for the electricity sector.
The current regulatory structure is basically a bilateral commercial negotiation between the governments and the electricity companies. Consumers have no place at the negotiation table. But the electricity market is not just a pure commercial transaction. The electricity sector is called a utility for a reason.
Chang said the government needs to consider a major overhaul of the existing scheme of control agreements to ensure that consumer interests are put first. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
Turning overseas again, news that charges against Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta at the International Criminal Court have been dropped, triggered celebrations in the streets of Nairobi. The case was dropped after key witnesses recanted their testimony amid cries of intimidation. Kenyatta had been charged with murder and rape, among other inhumane acts that left more than 1,000 people dead in the post-election violence that engulfed Kenya in 2008. The ICC prosecutor called dropping of the charges a painful moment for the thousands who suffered the horrors. Some African Union officials reacted by calling the ICC a failure, saying the Hague-based operation obviously lacks the power to prosecute African heads of state. But in Kenya, hundreds of Kenyatta supporters celebrated the news by cheering on the streets of Nairobi. The court did not acquit Kenyatta, so with solid evidence, charges could be brought again.
Greece is furious over a loan by the British Museum of one of the Parthenon marbles to a Russian museum. It is the first time in 200 years that any of the priceless ancient sculptures, also known as the Elgin marbles, has left Britain. The sculpture of the river god Ilissos from the facade of the Parthenon was unveiled Friday as part of a major exhibition at a St. Petersburg museum to mark its 250th anniversary. Athens says the 2,500-year-old statue was looted during Turkish occupation and demands its return. The British Museum has long rejected returning the sculptures, arguing that in London they can be seen by a global audience free of charge. The loan runs until January 18th.
Thais celebrated King Bhumibol Adulyadej's 87th birthday on Friday, despite his decision to cancel a public appearance on advice of his doctors. Members of the public and senior officials flocked to ceremonies around the kingdom to mark the occasion. The most elaborate event took place in Bangkok last night when thousands of people packed into a field near the Grand Palace. Bhumibol The world's longest reigning monarch has been visibly ailing in recent years. He spent almost 4 years in a hospital before leaving in August last year. But he has again been hospitalized since early October when he had his gallbladder removed. The cancellation of the king's public appearance on his birthday fueled concern about his health. The highly revered king is widely seen as a unifying figure in Thailand. The military government of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has called on all Thais to wear yellow this month to mark the monarch's birthday. All right, Chris, over to you for sports.
Let's get into some golf. In golf at the Hero World Challenge in Florida, Justin Spieth maintains a 2-stroke lead but couldn't finish the second round before darkness set in. Alan Booknia has the highlights.
It was a better day on the links for the tournament's host, Tiger Woods, in his first action since August as he was out with a bad back. He finished the day 2 under par after going 5 over the day before. His shot set up an eagle on the 13th, and he went on to birdie the 14th and 16th holes. Woods ended badly, though, as he double bogeyed the 18th.
It really didn't feel that much different than I did yesterday. I had probably 2 less worse shots than I did yesterday. But I struck the ball solid yesterday, and I did it again today.
Tournament leader Jordan Spieth set up a birdie with this